Fisicality Unscripted, episode 1. It's unscripted because I like using scripts, but sometimes I need to go over things in a quick fashion, and that means that you'll get more information, but it won't be polished. There'll be more ums, probably pauses, and things that slow us down a little bit, and I might not have the best words and dialogue to pass along the idea. I might talk in circles a little bit, but that's okay. That's the way the show's designed to work. I'm going to cover 3 things today in the first episode: the importance and difference of burn bag money and reward money. They are not the same thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Monthly versus annual budgeting or planning. And then finally, we'll go over a little bit simple percentage allocations once you determine what your money looks like after you've paid for all of your mandatory expenses. Once you've paid for your needs and the things that you have to pay. The importance of burn bag money and reward money. First of all, both of those are very important. When you have these kind of financial plans and you're engaging on something that has a lot of structure to it and you don't have the leeway for a lot of deviation, it's still important that you have a way to relieve some of that psychological pressure and stress that comes with a stick-to-it kind of attitude. When you're at the grindstone and you're trying to adhere to something and make sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted on a regular basis, day in, day out, month in and month out, there's a certain amount of psychological pressure that builds up when you're operating like that. And we want to relieve that on a regular basis. We don't want that to build up too much over time. What ends up happening is if you don't deal with that, you can put yourself at risk. Everything you worked for can be at risk. And the way that this can come about is a situation may arise, and most likely it's going to arise. Things are going to happen. And instead of you making a small mistake, you go all in and make a really big mistake. You want that to just bother you just a tad. You don't want it to totally derail whatever you have going on. And you want to be like the Terminator in Terminator 2. You remember Robert Patrick? And he was like that liquid Terminator. And there's a scene in there where he's running after Arnold and the Sarah Connor, and he's, booking down the street trying to get him, and they're shooting him, and he's just like, pound. He's running, pound, and he's getting hit with stuff, but he's just keeping going. He's right on it. And that's the way you want to be. You want to think like you're the Terminator. Some hit you from the side. It bothers you a little bit, but you're still moving forward, totally focused on your goal. What you don't want to have happen is that you fall completely apart the first time something comes and knocks you off balance a little bit or derails you. That's why you want to have these kinds of things built right into your program. The burn bag specifically is exactly what it says. It's money that you can literally, and when I say literally, I mean literally light on fire if you want. That's what it's built for. It's made to be the thing that psychologically you have complete and total freedom with it. And what that's going to do, that's going to free you up to utilize that money and use it when you need to in a completely guilt-free way, because it was designed into the program for that specific use. The reward money, a little bit different. That's meant to be a pleasure mechanism. That's meant to be the thing that comes every week or every 2 weeks. I like every week. But, your periodicity can vary based on your needs, where you're treating yourself, even if it's just a tiny bit, to something that you enjoy. Obviously, the thing that you enjoy needs to fit within the confines and constraints of the amount of money that you have. You can't have a reward system set up for something that costs $1,000 when you only have $10. That's not going to work. So it needs to fit within the context of what you have available to you. It needs to be sensible, but it still needs to be done on a regular basis. Amazingly, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Matter of fact, I would go so far to say as the more meager it is, probably the more enjoyment you're going to get out of it. I've had a couple of times where I had some rough patches, and for me, the Kit Kat was the thing. Every week I could count on getting myself a Kit Kat. And believe it or not, I work all week just to get to buying that Kit Kat, because I didn't have any money for anything else. It had to go other places. Now, could I have taken money out? Certainly, of course I could have, and not paid something else and let something else go by the wayside. I could have deviated from my plan, but that wasn't in the cards. I created the plan for a reason. And once you create a plan, just stick to it. And so my plan was to spend the money that I had available, and I didn't have a lot, but I had enough to get a Kit Kat, and I got one every week. And man, those little wafers, I remember nibbling on them. Man, it was so good. You know, you nibble on this thing and it, you know, chew it real slow, and it can take you a while to eat those little 4 wafers. But I remember doing that. And then eventually I got to where I could level up and go to my next thing I really enjoyed, which was the Little Debbie cakes. And at the time, I think the Swiss rolls were my favorite. So I would get a box. If you remember, there was a time where a box of Little Debbie Swiss rolls, it was only like 99 cents. You could get these things, and there'd be 6 in that box. And I would crush the whole box at one time. It wasn't like it wasn't no waiting around. I did it, and I really enjoyed myself. And so I would look forward to that all week. And the rest of the week, it was back to basics and eating vegetables, beans, rice, and that kind of thing. Some days didn't eat at all, and that was okay too. That was built into the plan. Hey, I won't be eating Tuesdays and Thursdays, but the other days of the week, I'm good to go. That was all right. And I didn't call it reward money back then. It became that over time. But that's essentially what it was. What I'm telling you about right now was that reward money. And so I made sure to take care of that every week. And that way, I didn't fall off the wagon and get weak and decide, not only am I going to have my Kit Kat and my Little Debbie cakes, but I'm going to go get a bunch of cheeseburgers. I'm going to get that radio I always wanted. I'm going to go get me a pair of sneakers and, you know, go to the movies and hang out all day and watch 5 or 6 shows. You know, that's the way it happens when you fall off the wagon. As long as you have that little touch that you're doing on a regular basis, you know, you're just constantly giving it a touch, kind of like in boxing, where you want to keep somebody honest. If you're fighting somebody, you don't want to go too long and let them get overconfident. And that's the way weakness and things that can take your money, they build mass and they can overwhelm you if you allow them to. But if I'm constantly throwing a jab out, you know, or touching them in some kind of way, it never has a chance to build up that confidence to, deliver a knockout or a severe blow at any time. The psychological impact of doing this can't be overstated. All of this relies on the mental aspect probably more than anything else, because that's the thing that motivates you to even get started. There are lots of people that have the raw materials, the physical capabilities, the resources, the environment. They have everything at their disposal, the knowledge, but they never take action. And they never take action because they aren't spurred to, and there's something in them psychologically that doesn't make them take that first step to actually go get involved. And not only is it essential for you to initiate some kind of catalytic response where you get going, it's the thing that keeps you going and also helps you maneuver around, avoid pitfalls, and do your best while you're engaged in whatever that activity is. And for us here, we're going to be talking primarily about finances and physical activity, strength training, but you can apply these principles to anything. The next thing is the monthly versus annual budgeting. So I looked online to see what experts said, or people that know a whole lot more than me about money. And all of the experts and people that I pulled up, they were saying that monthly is the way to go. I disagree. It's not overwhelming, but it's probably 70-30 that say monthly budgeting is superior to annual, and I disagree with that. With the monthly budget, one of the main reasons why I think that's inferior is because it makes it too easy for you to get caught up with something that can derail you or throw you off or cause problems with you sticking with the program. You know, because now you're worried about the daycare bill and that thing that came up and the thing associated with the other thing that's going to create this new thing that you got to worry about. And so you end up making decisions based on this immediacy and these exigent circumstances, and it makes it hard for you to make what I think are good long-term decisions. When you have an annualized budget, and that annualized budget is based on projections over what you know your history was from the last year, or where you are right now as far as what you know is coming in as far as your bills and what your financial situation is. So you're able to project that out. All you have to do is figure out the last 12 months, add them up, bam, there you go. For that line item, you have a number associated with that particular line item, whether that's inflow or outflow of your cash. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter. If you know what your bills are right now at this moment, it don't even have to be for the last month. It could be right now. What do you think your water bill is going to be this month? If the water bill doesn't come monthly, when is it going to come? If it comes every 3 months, guess what? We're going to multiply that number times 4, and we have our yearly total for that line item. So ideally, if something is paid every month or you have an expense that comes in every month, what do you think the average of that is? Multiply that by 12, that's the line item. If it's 3 times a year, multiply by 4, that's the line item. If it's twice a year, multiply by 2, that's the line item. So it doesn't really matter what the periodicity is for any one thing. The idea is that you create a line item for it and you project it out. And then the same thing goes for your inflows. You want to make sure that you capture those about where you think those are going to be. And then you budget off of that. And you divide that stuff up and you calculate each month when each bill is going to be due or when you think it's going to be due, and you mark it out that way. And the reason why that's so effective is that now those little things that pop up, during the week or the Friday after last and, that kind of stuff, these things that keep popping up, that's not affecting you for the year to be, for the year that's coming up that you've already allocated money for. For my personal budgeting, I forecast out 3 years. So I'm 3 years in advance. I have 36 columns for what's going to be paid out and what I need to pay and what's coming, all of that. It's already laid out. Each month that comes, I already have a model. I'm trying to stick to that model, but it's game time. I might have to make some tweaks here and there within that model to fit whatever the circumstances are for this point in time. But having that model really simplifies things for me. And now I just have little shifts here and there without having to worry about what the upheaval is going to be for the coming month or the next 6 months. The beauty of this lies in its stability, its forecastability, and the place to give you a point in time target to shoot for that's way in advance of where you are right now. I even had written it down. I had a little, let me find the paper for that. So, and that actually has a nice little acronym with it. If you look at that, BARE, B-A-R-E. So I'm going to create a new acronym and make like it's some kind of program. It's some new thing. It's not, it's just me messing around. But budget annually to get an idea of what needs to happen. You're going to project out. Once you have that budget, you're going to adjust that monthly based on the point in time conditions at that exact moment. Because we're talking about something that's strategic with budgeting annually, but this is tactical when you get down to adjusting monthly, because this right now, it's not as far reaching. Review it weekly. You want to look it over and make sure that you know what happened in the past and that everything is good. And then you want to see how that affects everything moving forward, and execute daily. You don't want to fly off the rails. If you don't have the money for something, if it wasn't budgeted, if it wasn't put into one of these buckets that you're going to have, that we haven't talked about all of those yet, you can't do it. But that right there is a simple mechanism for helping you make good decisions and also reap the benefits of having a solid program that has a foundation in logic and intelligence. And then finally, the last thing is the simple percentage allocations. So once we've got an idea of what kind of money we have at our disposal after we've paid our got-to-dos, the things that we have no choice to pay, because here's the thing, the money that you make on a regular basis, most of it isn't yours. When you get paid from work, that money, a lot of it isn't yours. You can't think that it's yours. If you think it's yours, that's a problem. So let's just say you have $1,000 you're going to get paid 1 week. And we're going to use 1,000, big round number. You can't think that $1,000 is yours, because it's not. Well, I guess there are some people that $1,000 could be all theirs. But for most of us, there are taxes, There are other fees that may come out of that with your company. Even your 401k. The 401k is technically yours, but it's not yours yet. It's not you today. It's the you you're gonna be. It's somebody in the future. So even that's not yours. That's the future you. That's their money. It's not yours today. So you can't claim it. So that money comes out. And so when it's all said and done, you have that stuff, and then you have bills. So there's probably going to be rent. There might be a mortgage, their water bill, light bill, car note, insurance, miscellaneous fees, expenses, food. When all of those things come out of the money, the number that's left over is the number you want to work with. And so your $1,000 that you had for that week, you might only have 200 of that 1,000 left, or 100, or 50. Doesn't matter what it is. The bottom line is, regardless of how much of that money is left, that you have a plan for it. Planning is the thing that saves you. The percentage allocations is what you want to focus on. I put up a simple format here. It can be simpler. We could break it down a little bit further and just have future projects and current projects and just kind of divide it up that way. But I went a little bit further. Here I have burn bag and reward. That gets 5% of that money. Emergency and vault, that gets 35%. Projects gets 20, and the money machine gets 50. And we'll break this up to a $100 bill, or $1 even. We'll say $1, because there have been times where I had so little money where pennies actually mattered. You know, I wasn't stepping over nickels and pennies when I was in the street. I was picking those up. Out of every dollar, we're going to decide where the pennies in that dollar need to go. And then based on how many dollars you may be getting in at any given time, we can scale that up. We can just add zeros till we get to your number or close to it. But the burn bag and reward system, that's going to get 5 of those pennies, with 2 of those pennies specifically for the burn bag and 3 of those pennies specifically for reward. 35 of those pennies going to go to emergency and vault, with 10 of those 35 going to emergency and 15 of those 35 going to vault. Projects, that gets 20 pennies, and the money machine gets 50. And I'm not going to spend too much time about what these are. I'll just give a brief overview of these little categories, because we're going to talk about those a whole lot more. You already know about burn bag and reward. Just talked about those, so we're going to move on from there. Emergency, that's exactly what it says. Everyone needs some kind of fund or liquidity pool to draw from in case something happens. So that's in case money. ICS, in case stuff. In case stuff happens. That's what that is, ICS. That needs to be something that can sustain you for at least 30 days, preferably 3 months. And there are variations to that. I'll probably start off just trying to get $500, try and get that to $500 and then scale up to $1,000, and then figure out what you need to survive for 3 months. That's your emergency fund right there. And then there's the vault. That's for longer term. The vault is going to be something that is beyond an emergency, because once you've been dealing with something and it's been 3 months, it ain't an emergency no more. That ain't an emergency. That's your new life. That's the way life is now. So that's going to be something where you need to be able to sustain for at least 6 months to a year normally. For me, I'm comfortable if that number right there is going to sustain me for about 3 years. I like working in threes. Threes works for me. So if I can get that number up to 3 years to sustain me, I'm happy with that. But, you know, once again, when we get into that deeper, we can go through the different philosophies about it and how to build that up to that point, because it won't be all at once. None of this is all at once. It's consistency over time. Projects, that's going to be, you need a new car. You need new furniture. The roof on the house is looking kind of old, and you're going to have to do something about it in the next couple of years. The water heater is making some noise, and you're probably going to have to buy one next summer, that kind of stuff. So things that you can plan for, that you know are going to be happening, you want to be putting aside money for those things right now. That's what the project fund is for. 20% goes there. And then finally, the money machine. The money machine is it. The money machine is that's the big thing. That's the thing that eventually is going to sustain all of this. This is where you're building something that returns money back to you. It pays for itself, and then it kind of feeds itself. It becomes this perpetual thing, this living thing. And the only thing you have to do is just continue to nurture it, feed it, help it grow. The way I believe this should be done is through dividend investing. Dividend investing is the easiest thing in the world. If I go out and buy a stock, and that stock or that company that I bought a slice of, it pays a dividend, that's giving me money just for owning it. I don't have to do anything else. And I really like REITs. REITs are really good. If you're into real estate, I've had dreams of owning an apartment complex and buying houses and all of this stuff. But man, fixing that stuff up and managing it and dealing with clients and customers and insurance and something went wrong, and it's a lot to deal with. Where if I go buy a REIT, I have a company, they're doing that for me. I don't have to do it. All I have to do is get the money from what they're doing. I really like realty income. That's my one. I'll do some videos on realty income, but there are others out there. And some people say realty is kind of long in the tooth and is not giving the same kind of return that maybe ADR and some of the other REITs are. But ideally, I'm still involved in real estate. It pays me a monthly dividend, and that can help you project out what your budget is going to be in the future based on how many shares you own. That's what your money machine is doing. You're buying stocks and financial vehicles that pay you on a regular basis, whether that's monthly or quarterly, but the totality of what's in that portfolio is delivering income back to you just for owning that stock. The only thing that you're charged with is getting this up and running and injecting assets into it to help it grow. Once it's up and running, the second thing is you want that money that it's generating to go back into it. So it's feeding itself. That's going to help it grow as well. So now we're talking about compounding, and that's its own magical thing. Eventually, the idea is that your job that you have right now, whatever your employment is for someone else, that's actually meaningless in your eyes. That's where you want to get to, because that's just something you're using to feed this thing that you own. That's yours. And what this is generating then becomes the thing that you use for your budgeting, for your financial welfare and all of those things. So you might have a job, you could be doing very well. Let's just say you're making $100,000 a year. And your money machine, it's generating $2,000 a year. Well, you can't live off $2,000 a year. Not yet. Not yet. But eventually you'll get to where your true fiscal need, this guy's going to get there. And your true fiscal need may not be whatever your salary says. You might be making $100,000, but in reality, you might be at 25 or 30,000 or 40,000. That's where you need to have cash injected into your life to be able to sustain you. Once you're able to get the money machine to that point, you definitely want to go over a little bit because you want it to be able to sustain you as well as continue to feed itself to keep growing. And its growth needs to be at least matching, if not exceeding by a certain amount, whatever the rate of inflation is. If you do that, now you've got a perpetual money machine and you can live off of that. Many of us, we weren't told any of this stuff. We weren't taught this stuff. We kind of figured it out on our own, or, you read, or maybe you looked up and saw some videos or talked to somebody that knew. And that's how you found out. So this is something you're going to have to do on your own. And not only are people probably not going to help you, you're going to have a lot of people telling you that, man, you're foolish, you can't take it with you, and, things like that. The bottom line is you go through life alone. And I know many people think that people are looking out for them, whether that be family, friends, relatives, co-workers, the system. But the bottom line is nobody cares. That's the truth. Nobody really cares. Most people, out of all those categories I named, they're either doing something for you out of duty, responsibility, or the system says, or that's the way the program is set up. or it actually helps them out in some way. It has actually nothing to do with you. It's a benefit to them. So nobody cares. When you're suffering and going through hard times, that's the mentality I think is healthy. That way you're not dependent on anybody, you're not expecting anything, and anything you do get, you're gonna be very thankful for and appreciative of it. But don't be expecting a lot of help with any of this. Don't expect encouragement, don't expect anything. Just come up with your plan, be prepared to execute, and hit it out of the park. With that said, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this first episode of Fisicality Unscripted. I hope to do a bunch of these kinds of videos where I can just kind of wax and wane poetic, and it's not polished, but that's okay with me. I'm still gonna go through the actual Fisicality book. I spent what I consider to be quality time writing that book, and I already see things that I could have done better and things I could have explained better, and maybe I can clear some of those things up and expand on them with some of the videos as I go through the book. That'll be maybe part of this series or part of another series, but I'm gonna be reading through that and kind of fleshing out bits and pieces of it. But that's it. Good luck with your fiscal journey, and thanks for watching.